Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have had a wonderful international break thus far. Today, I have for you what I deem to be the best Game Week 8 wildcard squad. And even if you're not on wildcard, I think this video could prove very, very useful. I will have to analyze each and every player in terms of their micro level prospects, and far less so in terms of strategy, right? Because you have free reign here to make whatever moves you like. And I think with that in mind, you could get a bunch of very useful insights, whether you should be or you shouldn't be buying a player down the line. Should you be prioritizing them, etc., etc. Now, the channel is going really well at the moment. I am very, very grateful for your support. However, I looked at certain statistics, including the watch time from non-subscribers on my last video, which was one of my most viewed videos, and it shocked me. It was at 50%, which is a huge amount considering the watch hours on it. Thus, I would be very, very grateful for those who watch regularly but haven't clicked the button. If you could do that as we now go for 4,000 subscribers, that would be magnificent. Nothing else needs to be said, so let's get into the video. Right, as is standard practice with most wildcard videos that I've produced, before we go into the actual team, let's discuss a bit of strategy. Now, for those of you who have been watching my channel for a little while, you will know I was very anti-wildcard 6 and I was pretty anti-wildcard 4. In terms of those two wildcards, I'm less anti it now. I like it a bit more. However, that isn't to say that I actually do like it. I don't. I think, again, this is not the best opportunity wildcard, and there are a number of reasons why. Firstly, and most importantly, I think there is limited upside to this wildcard. When you look at the picks, especially the midfield, you will realize that most of the assets here are somewhat template already. And most importantly, in terms of practical application that I've spoken about a lot, in terms of the exit routes to these players, which are desirable, they're pretty easy. Salah isn't included in this wildcard draft, for example. Now, he, if you don't have him, is a pretty difficult player to get in. However, no shock, Brian Mbeumo is on in this wildcard. If you don't have him, he's not the hardest asset to get at 7-4, right? Regardless of your structure, he's really not that difficult to get. 2 transfers and you're there. Maybe 3, but you don't need to rip your team apart for him. And even when you're making other transfers, you could facilitate the likes of some of the defenders I have, which are on the cheaper side, and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, you look at 12, and in terms of relative upside, I would say it's bigger because there is a bigger fixture swing there. And if you are to relinquish your Arsenal assets now, which some are doing, well, at least you can get back on them on 12, right? You can get rid of them for what you deem to be bad fixtures and then get them back for good fixtures. What a wonderful strategy. Something that I think is being super underappreciated as well is a late wildcard. I'm talking like really, really late, close-ish to Game Week 19, because we have 6 game weeks in December, okay? And that period will undoubtedly bring more injuries, it will bring more chaos, and it will just have more and more time for trends to establish. I think we're getting to the point soon where not too much is going to change in terms of most trends. Things will pop up. They always do. You'll have these Jesse Lingard cameos where he just goes on an absolute monster run for 6 weeks. Same with Almiron. But in general, I think things will start to settle down. And having all of that information and then packing that into a wildcard, I think is great. I think with how teams are going to diverge, simply because they'll have to, because of expected minutes reducing for most players and the increase in injuries, picking a bulletproof squad or close to it during that wildcard and having the optimization of picks, again, brilliant. And realistically, most look to wildcard around 30 to capitalize on those double game weeks, those blank game weeks, and just fit in with general chip strategy. Well, now you're significantly reducing the span of which you need your team to last before you can play your chip. And most teams aren't even in that bad of a state right now. Yeah, sure, it'd be lovely to have X, Y, and Z this week because they've got good fixtures, but do you really need them? Because most of these picks that are new picks, I would say, aren't even that high upside. You're selling the likes of Salah, for example, who pretty much no one would have on wildcard 8. But I think he could do very well against Chelsea, which we'll speak about in the preview. I think after Arsenal, which I don't even think is too bad for him, those next 3, they're brilliant. Okay, what about Kai Havertz? Someone in red-hot form. You're going to sell him? Okay, fine, you can move to the likes of Solanke, but I'd say Havertz looks in better form. I'd say he's playing for a better team. I wouldn't even say the fixtures are that bad for him personally because of the way he conducts himself in the big games. So for a variety of reasons, I'm not super keen on this. I would say that, again, I am more bullish on it than I was on wildcard 6 because I think there is a bit more upside to capture. But I would just not get too trigger happy with this wildcard. I think your team can pretty much ride it out, even if you have to take a hit or two for the next few weeks, and then it can be capitalized on later down the line. I think people underestimate how powerful this wildcard is just because people have been able to roll free transfers. You can only roll up to 5, and very, very infrequently are you ever going to get there. Even if you get to 4, which I'm being very generous with, what if I want to make 10 changes to the wildcard? That's a 24-point hit to catch up. That is a lot. So I wouldn't underestimate this chip just because of the free transfer usage. And again, I would all the points that I've made already, I would definitely keep it in mind because I don't think it's being pushed too much in the community. However, I do think it's important. Right, now this is a goalkeeper combination you would have seen quite a few times on this channel when building Wildcard. Sells and Bender. Now, Sells has retained his spot in the side for me yet again. People will be wondering, oh, you could have gone in a lot of other places. He's not too popular as a wildcard pick, but for me, he is still the best goalkeeper in the game. I think the fact he's at 4.5 is a huge deal for me, right? I am adamant that every year, it is a 4.5 goalkeeper who shows themselves to be the best value. At sometimes, maybe you could argue it's the 5 million, but very often, if not always, it's the 4.5 million goalkeeper. So with that in mind, why would I stray from that strategy, especially when goalkeepers are getting less and less bonus points now, just given the change in the structure in the system? Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to go for a goalkeeper who is playing for one of the teams that is not playing, I would say, the modern way. The modern way is far more expansive, and it's far more susceptible to conceding a lot of big chances and therefore goals. Forest don't play like that. They take an older approach. They are far more willing to sit deep. Their coach is far more willing to set them up like that. They're far more willing to have slightly less technical players in order to have better dueling capacity within the midfield, better running capacity. They don't focus on necessarily playing straight out, progressing straight through the middle. That's something that Man United did against Liverpool, for example, which is something I really like, right? You look at Murillo, someone who is brilliant at anticipating space and what is going to come next. And he just understands the game in general very well. And he is more than happy to boot the ball 50 yards, and his manager will never criticize him for it. And for all of those reasons, on top of the fact that Sells looks to be in good form, and the fixtures, of course, we're going to discuss, for me, I'm very happy to let him stay in the side all the way up to about game week 12, I believe it is, before we ship him out when his bad run starts. And it starts pretty much after Ipswich at home. Okay. With the fixtures in the next 4, 3 of them at home, I think that's a big deal. Because goals are flying in left, right, and centre within the Premier League, having that home advantage, that small edge, I think is quite a big deal. And the fact that the sides they play, they're all hauling type of fixtures, I would say. West Ham and Newcastle, they've got at home in the next 4 weeks, and both the sides with genuinely good attacks. Therefore, I expect Newcastle and West Ham to generate at least some form of decent chances within the game. However, given it's at home for Forest, given how good Forest have looked, I would not be surprised for those chances to be fairly low to mid-level XG shots, and thus Sells could realistically rack up a haul, but also not have a really low chance of keeping a clean sheet. For example, the Chelsea game, it was probably a little bit too far in the balance to get a mega haul, right? Had they kept a clean sheet there, it would have been a huge haul. But with the Chelsea onslaught and the quality, it was very unlikely they were going to keep the clean sheet in the first place. Whereas West Ham at home and Newcastle at home, I feel like the perfect via media for Sells to prosper. The fixtures in the next 2 are quite good as well. I really like Palace at home. And again, at 4.5, there's no one really else. You could argue Sanchez, but the run in the next 4 is pretty poor. I don't expect Chelsea to necessarily keep beating any of them. Maybe Newcastle because they're not as good on the road, but that's about it. And for that reason, I'm really anti-Raya because I think, or as you will see, I might even have triple Arsenal, outfield Arsenal, and I just don't think Raya's worth it for a variety of reasons, which have been discussed on this channel before. So for me, Sells is still the best goalkeeper in the game. Right, now the goalkeeper section in general is pretty boring, but this is far more interesting. We'll start with Milenkovic and Calafiori, who are in a slightly weird graphic because I needed to fit them both in, and you will see a question mark there. So this wildcard has 13 players locked and then 2 different routes. One of the midfield spots are being contested by 2 cheaper mids, and then therefore whichever one you pick will determine which one you pick in defense. Now, I've got Milenkovic and Calafiori there. 2 picks that I haven't really seen on wildcard. Milenkovic can be summed up by the Sells analysis, right? I'm bullish on Forest's defense, hence why I've got him in there at 4.5, and he's playing 90 minutes a game, so I don't have to worry about rotation. The other thing is, he's been a threat in the opposition's box. If you go and look at the data, it's very, very, very promising. Now, I saw a statistics table on X, which showed that from game weeks 2 to 6, no one had underperformed their expected points more than Milenkovic in terms of the actual performances and what they're meant to produce. That shows how much of a threat he's been from set pieces and around the opposition's box. And of course, he got the assist against Chelsea to warrant that. Okay. So I know people say, oh, it's a Forest double up, and that is a larger risk. And I would agree, but I would also say it's larger upside in an era where there are not too many good defenses. When Forest is one of them, I think capitalizing on that is actually quite sensible when the fixtures are so good. I think this could be a really nice route to a bit of upside for a cheap price. You get Sells' ceiling and Milenkovic's ceiling, which are both quite decent. Okay. Calafiori is a really, really interesting prospect. At 5'8", he's probably undervalued because he should be 6, right? Obviously, he's had the price falls because people have bought him and then sold him immediately. But at 5'8", I genuinely would say he's undervalued. He plays for the best defense in the league, in the best set piece taking team in the league, and you need to look at his role. His role on the ball is something very unique. If you look at Arsenal now, when they form their 3, they really allow Calafiori to wander into midfield. And it's not just midfield, but it's advanced midfield positions. And it's not just even the left half space. It's quite central as well. He's got a good level of ball striking. I've seen it through comps. Now, you can make anyone look good in comps, but there are a few things to differentiate between those who are better and who are worse. And Calafiori definitely goes into the category of being better. And for that reason, I think having him and Gabriel as a double up could be of immense value. The other thing is he is genuinely a threat from set pieces as well. And also in terms of ball striking, you saw it against Manchester City. I just realized. So for all of those reasons, I actually think as a set and forget pairing, Calafiori and Gabriel could be brilliant. They could really, really be brilliant because you are going to generate a high volume of clean sheets. I think especially in the big games, Arsenal is so difficult to score against, especially when Rice in this type of form. And they get used to playing without Odegaard more, and Partey and Rice become settled in this almost 4-2-4, 4-4-2 hybrid system. So for all those reasons, especially his open play threat, I quite like it. Now, saying all of that, my preference in this wildcard quite strongly is still the Milenkovic pick, as you will see why during the midfield sections, but I really like it. Gabriel, I mean, some people are going out without him on a wild card. I just really, really disagree. I still think, just like I said before game week 1, the best defender in the game, and you just don't touch him. Can score in any game, right? No matter the opposition, they're good enough from set pieces, and he's the statement piece, almost, if you would like, of that brilliance, okay? And it's all really for him, right? And if it's not for him, it's for Havertz. So, and a lot of you own him anyway, which is good. So for me, there's no reason to take this out. I think you're just overcomplicating it. And sometimes you have to take the buffer theory, right? We can't be using transfers here, there, and everywhere every single week. We're going to have to fix problems as well, as opposed to just having free reign to optimize our team. And I think what's worked in the past is just holding certain assets and just letting them ride. Sure, they'll blank here or there, but don't let that offset the fact that they are brilliant, brilliant value. And for those reasons, I just don't understand why you would go without Gabriel. I think he's so clear at the top in terms of the best defender of the game when you look at his price. I don't think Liverpool will be able to keep the same volume of clean sheets they have in the first 7 in the next 7, and therefore you'll start to see the disparity emerging between Gabriel and the rest. Okay, Mikalenko's there for the brilliant fixtures. At 4-3 as well, such a brilliant facilitator. I think this side had about 0.2 million in the bank spare, by the way. And for those reasons, at 4-3 with those fixtures, how can I pass it up, right? Some attacking threat, not too much, but some. But mainly, it's just a facilitating and fixture play, okay? And I'm not going to try and overcomplicate that. Wout Fast is there, yeah, sure. Like, maybe some of you have had him initially. I'm happy to pay the 0.1 extra because the fixture run's pretty decent. I don't think Leicester is as bad as people say. I think defensively, especially at home, they're going to be somewhat difficult to play against. And just in case you need to use him, especially given that you're not going to be wildcarding during the Christmas period, which is very intense. I think having some squad depth is really, really nice. And then Ait-Nouri, similar to Mikalenko, very, very good facilitator given he's 4-4. But wow, those fixtures plus that attacking threat can just bail you out. I go back to my theory that I've spoken about so much more. Clean sheets will be on the down because of how teams are playing. And therefore, with the changes to the bonus structure, attacking returns become imperative and more important than they've ever been. And this man can produce them for you, right? Better than most. And for those reasons, I don't really see why you would pass up Ait-Nouri. I could get on board with going without Mikalenko if you wanted to go Pickford, for example, in goal. But Ait-Nouri at 4-4, I think, is absolute gold dust. And of all the 4.5s, or at least those who started 4.5, he's the best in the game now for me. Right, just like last time, let's start with the debate. And that is Emil Smith-Rowe and Milinkovic, or Tyler Dibling and Calafiori. Now, Calafiori and Dibling is a very high upside, low floor type of play because you still have to account for the fact that Calafiori might not play every game. I think he'll actually play a lot. I don't think Arteta's the type to really rotate. He's shown that with Ryan Ramsdale. Once Raya was established, that's it. Ramsdale, see you later. He's shown that ruthlessness with Zinchenko as well. When it's come to the bigger games, he just won't play those games with this huge transitional threat down that side, and he wants a bit more physicality. He's shown it with Jesus. Now it's pretty much, I would say, he's going to leave at the end of the summer because he's a very good player, but I just don't think he's ever going to take this number 9 spot off Kai Havertz. And he hasn't even dropped Kai Havertz once or moved into the bench, rested him. For all of those reasons, I think Calafiori, with the way he's playing, sure, is still some expected minutes risk, but I think he'll be fine. My issue is, as we get closer and closer to that Christmas period, and you need a squad to last for so long, as we've spoken about. With Smith Rowe's run, I just really, really like the prospects he provides over someone like Tyler Dibbling, who I'm sure will play every game, but Southampton aren't going to score that many goals, so I would say the upside is limited. At least they don't look like they're going to score too many goals now. I can see Russell Martin tweaking the system somewhat with the players they've got and actually performing pretty well as a side. I do think they're definitely under-repping their talents, but still, with the spread of output that will be that at Southampton, I'm not overly keen on Tyler Dibbling. I do prefer the Milinkovic, Emil Smith Rowe, because I feel so safe with Emil Smith Rowe as an asset. I think the fixtures coming up are really nice. They're all exploitable from an attacking standpoint. I think his minutes will be fine, and he's had a really nice rest right now. Right, you didn't play City, well, you didn't start City. He would have had the international break off, getting his body more and more accustomed to football as a result at a decent pace. And then obviously all the tactical reasons for the games coming up, which we're not going to go into now because it would take ages. But if you just look at the fixtures, it's quite fairly self-explanatory as to how he could exploit all of them. And I wouldn't be looking at benching him for any if I was Marco Silva. And I think even the ones at home are especially good because I think Fulham at home are going to be a really, really difficult side to contain. Just look at the attacking competence they showed against Manchester City. Yes, a very different type of game. Yes, one where they relied a lot on individual quality and transitional threat, but they've still shown what they can do against quote-unquote the lesser sides when they have more possession of the ball and have to build in a normal fashion. Anyway, more normal fashion. All right. Palmer, the only real big miss I would say in this midfield is the fact there's no Spurs midfielder and there's no Salah. Now, Salah I really, really like from 10, 11, 12. I think that those fixtures are brilliant. Brighton at home, Villa at home, Southampton away. There's a lot of points over there, and the stylistic suitability for him in those fixtures is high. However, I actually do think the one against Chelsea is fine as well, especially considering half a defence is suspended in Cucurella and Fofana. But he is very difficult to fit in given his price point, hence why I've gone without him. The other thing is there's no Brennan Johnson here right now. I think his expected minutes will actually be pretty decent because if a right winger in an AND system is scoring this many goals, that is very impressive because it's not easy to function as a winger in an AND system. I'd argue it's one of the hardest to do so and make yourself look really, really good. It requires such a high level. And I like him as a player, right? So there'll probably be even more reasons for me to pick him. However, when you look at the squad structuring, I think it's just better to leave it. And we'll have to look at the forwards before we come on to that. So for me, whilst I think it's actually a pretty decent option, mainly I'm leaving him out for structuring reasons. And Maddison's similar. When he's the same price as Mbeumo with Spurs' spread of output and just the fact that Mbeumo's got far more open play goal threat and penalties, there's no way I can justify it. Palmer's there for the obvious reasons. He's just a set and forget. He's fairly fixture-proof, if not completely fixture-proof right now. Sure, the fixtures aren't great. Like Liverpool away is not great. Arsenal at home in 11 is not great either. But like the Newcastle Man United one sandwiched in between, given the way it is, given it's Newcastle at home and Man United away, if it was the other way around, I'd be a bit concerned. But given it's that, I think he'll be fine. And like I mentioned, fixture-proof player, right? Playing in those pockets that he is, running off Jackson like he is, the goal scoring he's got, the ball striking he's got, he's so intelligent at picking up pockets. I realize he's so intelligent in terms of his spatial awareness that he's undoubtedly going to be either a chance creation machine or a goal scorer, but really a via media of both. And we just go on about Palmer for ages, right? For the obvious reasons. Saka, okay. I just want to give you some numbers to explain how well Bukayo Saka is playing. Bear in mind, he's shackled pretty much to the touchline, right? Last year, he got, I better get this right now. I think he got 16 goals and 12 assists. It's either like 16 and 12 or like 14 and 12. He's got to let me off regardless. And his XGI was roughly like 26. He's got 2 goals and 7 assists so far without a single penalty in 7 games. That's 9 returns in 7 games. If I was to just keep him going at the same rate, given his goal scoring is so low, you times that by 5, he's already at, 45 returns, and we've still got 3 games left. Now, you can assume that he doesn't go at the same rate. Even if he was to produce 5 returns every 7 games with 1 goal and 4 assists, you can see how well he's going to do at the end of the season. Not picking him at 10 million, 10.1, I just think I think he's underpriced, and therefore I think it's a poor decision. I always thought that him and Palmer really should be the same. And the fact that Arsenal haven't had any penalties and he's still performing at this level, and the fact that, to be honest, he could have had more goals than he's had now, right? Especially considering I think you're probably slightly less shackled to the touchline as Arsenal look to optimize their overall attacking dynamics. and generally just gets a bit more luck. Some of the times he's come inside, he's been unfortunate not to get a goal, and largely unselfish. So with the premiums, I don't think I'm going to go into too much more depth than I have already. I just don't really see why you would not. I just don't understand the justification for going out without him. Mbeumo is actually similar. I'd place him in the same category of Saka and Palmer in terms of how obvious of the picks they are. The fixtures are brilliant from an attacking standpoint. I was at the Brentford game against Wolves last weekend, and you could just kind of see from open play how big of a threat he is, how good on the ball he is. And for those reasons, at this price, with the ceiling, with the floor, I don't understand how you can go with that. And pound for pound, best asset in the game this year. Absolutely. Like, look how many points he's racked up compared to the premiums. Pound for pound, best asset in the game. Rodgers is here again as a facilitator. When you have a man playing this many minutes at this price for that team, and his overall quality is what it is, I just don't see why you would let it go, especially when you've got a little bit of value accumulated there, right? I think really, really, really solid pick. And to be honest, this is why I said with Wildcard 8, I wasn't overly excited, because you look at this midfield and it's not difficult to get to. Pretty much everyone has Rodgers. Everyone has at least one of Saka or Palmer. Most have Saka. A lot of people have Mbeumo. Just go and get Palmer, like, somehow. Premium, in my opinion, is far more optimal than Tumium anyway. We can speak about that on the preview, actually. And for all of those reasons, I think this midfield is very easy to get to without Wildcard 8, but the one that I would deem to be the best on the strategy. Finally, if you've been following me on Twitter for a while, you will know that I am a big Matthias Cunha fan. I think he's a brilliant player. With that run, I think he's absolutely fine. One thing I noticed about him is he has a similar trait to other brilliant players in teams which aren't quite at their level, whereby he does a lot. Like, you will find him picking up pockets of space on the right-hand side when he's meant to be playing, like, I didn't even describe, like, a left side of the 4-2-3-1. You will find him in central pockets. You will find him driving. You will find him receiving with his back towards goal. He's just so heavily involved, and he needs to be, because of the quality that he's got to raise Wolves to a point where they can actually get some wins. With that fixture run, with that price, with penalties, set pieces as well, absolute no-brainer at 6.5. To go without him on a wildcard, I think is criminal, honestly. 6.5 for that asset. One of the best value picks in the game from now on. He's on the bench because he got City at home. Not to say that he can't do anything against them. I think he'll give Walker a tough time regardless, and the fact that it's at home. But after that, because who else am I going to really bench, right? You could bench like one of Rodgers or Smith Rowe, because that's the Smith Rowe pairings, the ones that I prefer, given they play each other. And play Cunha, I wouldn't mind that, but for me, I think I just play the fixture here at surface level at least. Haaland is there for the obvious reasons. People are like, oh, he's banked in the last two. No, De Bruyne. Is it time to sell him? 15.3. Da, da, da. I think the fixtures are too good. Specifically, the Southampton in 9-1, when everyone's going to captain him. It's almost like it's not a guaranteed floor of a brace, right? But I'd be surprised if he goes less than 12 points. A goal and assist should be the minimum in that game. And for those reasons, especially with the way they play, right? And City are so good at pressing high and nicking the ball back off you and turning you over there, that I just think that is a slam dunk game. Why would you start 24 points a week behind? Most people love this fixture as well, the Wolves away one. I don't love it as much. Maybe I'm getting a little too tricky with it, which we'll discuss later. But still, it's a good one regardless. And I don't know why you would go without him, because where are you even going to reinvest the money? That's another thing I noticed with these non-Haaland drafts. At the moment, where do you even reinvest the money? Okay, fine, you go and get an extra midfielder in Salah, for example, or like a Foden, but then you're losing Haaland's captaincy choice. And the four that you're replacing with him isn't even that good, especially when you consider the likes of Rodgers and Smith Rowe. They're very solid anyway, okay? Finally, Solanke. I just really like the Spurs' next four fixtures from the attacking prospects. 3 of them are at home. 90 minutes looks pretty nailed for him. Even in the games where others have been substituted, Ange's used 5. Given, I think, mainly his pressing capacity, Ange's just not going to sub him, and the physicality he provides, just if you want to go long as well. Did well against Saliba in that game, and he just showcased that you can go long to him quite frequently, and he will do a very good job for you. So for all of those reasons, I think, again, the forward line was very simple to pick. I didn't spend too much time here. Sure, you could look at Chris Wood for cheaper and move the money elsewhere, but that would change the whole structure of the draft. And for me, this is what I feel for it to be optimal. The only thing with Solanke is I'm a little bit concerned about his ceiling, because he doesn't look too sharp to me at the moment. And I think Spurs could be a bit better from a chance creation standpoint for him specifically, in terms of the way they're creating. You see the left winger getting on the activate. You see Maddison and Kulusevski more so, and the right winger, of course, in Brennan Johnson. I do, however, think they'll slightly revert to getting him more chances when he looks a little bit sharper, and he'll become a bit more of a magnet, as an Ange number 9 usually is. And from there, he'll have a very good floor. Now that price, I think you can justify it. So yeah, that's the draft. Like I said, not too keen on it, and I'm not trying to make it out like I am. A lot of template picks. Solanke and Cunha, for example, right? You get them in, and I think Cunha is great value, but I don't think they're the highest upside picks you've ever seen. And who are you losing, right? You're losing like a Havertz. You're losing like a Chris Wood. You really need to lose them with the form they're in? I don't think so. The defense, again, like you've probably got like one of Lewis or Gvardiol. Do you really need to sell them, etc., right? And then Palmer, Saka, and Buemo, you've at least got two of the three. For all of those reasons, again, not too high on it, but the actual draft itself in terms of the team, pretty solid. And that is all she wrote from today. Given I was quite critical of the wildcard from a strategic perspective, and given it didn't differentiate itself from the template too much, I found myself rambling a little bit. So for that, I apologize. I do, however, hope you gain some unique insights and value out of it, specifically when it came to one or two players, maybe like Calafiori and the analysis there, for example, or the Nottingham Forest defense analysis or anything else. I will be back very, very shortly, potentially on Sunday, for a very cool video, one which will provide a lot of value, I think. And for that, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Have a wonderful weekend, and I shall see you very, very soon.